What would it cost the Mariners to acquire Luis Robert, Randy Arozarena, or Ryan McMahon? Some of you take a crack at answering that question coming up here on Fan Fiction Friday. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Friday, June 21st, 2024. This is Titan Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This is Fan Fiction Friday, the show where you submit your Mariners mock trades and we grade them on the 20-80 scale, 20 being the worst, 80 being the best. Before we get into this week's batch, shout out to our title sponsor today, Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get help from a team of licensed tax professionals by calling 1-800-549-1000 or visiting tnusa.com/lockedon. And if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, check out our Patreon. The link is in the description and you can sign up for a free 7-day trial. All right, let's get into your trades, which were all handpicked except for one by Colby. Josh is going to kick us off here with a deal with the Marlins, who the Mariners just so happen to be playing tonight. Mariners get Tanner Scott, Josh Bell from Miami for Dom Canzone, Ty France, Michael Arroyo, Jonathan Clase, and Michael Morales. That is a lot. What do you think, Colby? Why did you pick this trade?
Yeah, so this trade I specifically picked because we've talked about this idea quite a bit, over the last few weeks. I think mostly on our Patreon show, but I'm sure we've talked about it here as well. We talked about it with Gary Hill a little bit. The other day, but we've talked a lot about finding the line between being aggressive and being reckless. This is reckless. Like this deal is what reckless looks like. You're trading a huge package to, at best stay where you are at first base. Like you're not improving. Like Josh Bell is not an upgrade to Ty France. He's also more expensive and he only has 2 months of club control left. So it feels like that part of the trade is just you trying to dump Ty France for some reason, just clear up if you really want to move on from Ty France this winter, just don't tender him. Like that's what you do. That's how you get rid of that money. And so the rest of this, like even if it's France for Bell, like those players are roughly the equivalent. They're pretty much the same guy.
You could absolutely trade Ty France for Josh Bell right now, just straight up, like 1 for 1, because Bell's making more money. France has more club control.
Right.
So this deal ultimately feels like because like that's way too much for Tanner Scott alone. So it feels like I'm paying extra for Josh Bell for some reason. And I can't wrap my head around what that reason is.
Yeah. So, even if you consider that a fair swap, which I don't, I'd rather have Ty France. He's just better player, more club control and all that. Then you're talking about trading 6 years of Canzone, top 10-ish prospect in Michael Arroyo, Jonathan Clase, who's, interesting to say the least.
Sure.
And then Michael Morales, who's actually having a bit of a breakout year this year. You're talking about trading all of that for 2 months of Tanner Scott.
Yeah.
That's way too much because honestly, I could probably package Clase and Morales alone and go get Austin Adams. Right. And I don't have to give up 6 years with Dom Canzone. I don't have to give up Michael Arroyo. Or maybe I go and I give up Arroyo and Morales and I go get, Michael Kopech or whatever, right? Like I can go get somebody who's got a couple years of control instead of just 2 months. So when we talk about, finding that fine line between reckless and aggressive, this jumps over that line. This is what reckless looks like. This is pursuing one upgrade at the cost of other parts of your team. Like it's way over the line here. You're paying 250 cents on the dollar in this trade. So if you just want to give up Clase and, Morales for Tanner Scott, fine, whatever. I wouldn't, if you gave up Michael Arroyo straight up for 2 months of Tanner Scott, wouldn't love it, but I understand the thought process behind it.
Right.
But you start tacking on all this stuff, it just feels like you're trying to clear 40-man space and you're trying to clear 26-man space, and you're not trying to actually get the most you can out of these players that you're trading.
Ty France doesn't need to be in this deal. Josh Bell doesn't need to be in this deal. Jonathan Clase probably doesn't need to be in this deal. Dom Canzone probably doesn't. Like, I think just a combination of two of the players you're sending probably gets it done. Like, it has to be a specific combination of two, because like it can't be like Clase and Morales. I don't think that's going to get it done for Tanner Scott. But like Arroyo and Clase, or Arroyo and Morales, or Arroyo and Canzone, whatever, right? Like that probably gets it done for Tanner Scott.
Sure. I mean, like, or maybe the Marlins really want Ty France, and you're like, okay, well, we trust Ty Locklear enough, so we'll give you France and Morales, and then that kind of evens out like the salary that you're swapping a little bit. Like that would make more sense. But another reason I picked this trade, and when we do these fan fiction Fridays, it's kind of easy to pick up on trends, right? We're seeing like which teams which teams the fan bases are thinking of, and like what players they want to trade and all that stuff. One of the things I've noticed in a lot of the trades we got is a lot of people just kind of throwing Ty France into trades just to try and like get rid of him. And I assume that's because people are really desperate to give Ty Locklear the at-bats at first base, which I don't get. We're not going to, get into that too much today. We got a lot of trades to go through, but like, no, you don't just get rid of an asset just to get rid of him. Like there has to be a reason behind it. And if the reason is you're trying to clear some salary, like fine, but this deal in particular, you're taking on, I think Josh Bell's making $16 million this year. So you trade for him in July, you're still going to owe him 6. And then Tanner Scott's making, I think, like 8 or 9. So you're still going to owe him, 3. Like you're taking on $9 million and you're only ridding yourself of like $2 million. So it's not even like you're saving money with this trade either. This is, again, aggressive versus reckless. Went a little too far into the reckless side for this one to be a viable trade.
Well, and look, Tanner Scott, he's been a lot better lately. He's still walking a ton of dudes right now. I know he's got the 1.7 ERA right now, but he's also walking six guys per 9 at the moment.
Yep.
Like I don't think he's going to realistically cost that much. I can't imagine that. And if the Marlins are asking for something more than a couple of guys, like I said earlier, I'm out. I'll move on. I'll go look at, Austin Adams or Tanner Banks or whoever, right? Doesn't matter. I'm not dipping my toes into that water. I'm going to give that one a 30. Sorry. It's just too much for Tanner Scott, and the Josh Bell and Ty France inclusions make no sense to me. All right. Next trade here from Doug. Doug has a deal with the White Sox, and he's swinging for the fences with this one. Bryce Miller, Jonathan Clase, Harry Ford, and Michael Arroyo for Luis Robert and Garrett Crochet.
No. Just no. So here's the thing. One of the other things I've noticed, not so much in our fan fiction tweets, but a lot of people are asking like, oh, the Mariners should just go get Garrett Crochet and put him in the rotation. And I think a lot of people are thinking like, oh, well, if the White Sox want Miller or Wu in their trade for Robert, well, then yeah, just go get, Fetty or go get Crochet. And here's the problem with going and getting Crochet. He's going to be in the same boat as Brian Wu. Right. Like he is about to set a new career high in innings pitched. He's not going to be available to go 6-7 innings in September and October. Not going to happen. So what you're trading for a guy who is eventually going to be in your bullpen, and you're giving up one of your 4, best starting pitchers and arguably like one of your 5, most valuable assets in the entire organization.
That's where I get hung up here. That's where I get
the prospect package.
Yeah, that's where I get hung up here, is that it's Miller. If this was Wu, I could wrap my head around this, because again, they're in similar boats. He's still going to run into a similar issue of like he's probably going to get shut down or moved to the bullpen at some point this season. But at least I don't have 2 of those guys in my rotation if I traded Wu in this deal rather than Miller.
Right.
So I could wrap my head around that a little bit easier. I think the Orioles could do better in a deal like this, and I think this is something the Orioles would be more aggressive on as well, because they need the pitching help, especially with Bradish just now getting Tommy John the other day.
They need a guy for next year as well.
I don't think the Mariners should be like in the market for a Crochet Robert deal. Like they do need some pitching help, particularly on the back end of the rotation with the Woo question mark, right? And that's something that not a lot of people are talking about at the moment. But I don't think they need to go that hard after that pitching help.
Right. I mean, like, it's still going to cost a little bit, but doesn't a rental like Jack Flaherty make more sense? Doesn't like Yusei Kikuchi make more sense? Those are both guys that might be available. Chris Bassett, maybe. I think he's a free agent after this year. Like,
no, he's still got one.
He's got one more year.
He's got one. He might have two, actually.
He's making like $20 million a year too, right?
Yeah,
so like money wise might be tight there. But
Yeah.
even like, what about just Eric Fetty, like Crochet's own teammate? Like, go get Fetty. He will help. So yeah, I think, you know, throwing Crochet in this deal just kills it on arrival because like valuation wise, is this about what the White Sox probably hope that they can get? Sure. They probably want a little bit more than this even, but does it make the Mariners any better? Not really. Like, yes, because, you know, Robert goes into your lineup, but you're trading, you know, a starter who's going to be able to go 170, 180 innings for a guy who's maybe got 6 or 7 starts left at most before he's going to the bullpen. And now your rotation has Brian Wu in the 4 and Emerson Hancock in the 5 as you try and, you know, survive the last 2 months, and you know you're going to have to shut Wu down. And oh, by the way, Emerson Hancock has his own workload management issues that he's got to work through as well. And oh, by the way, Hancock left his last start with some back tightness, which sounds like nothing major there, but that's something to keep an eye on. You just don't have the pitching depth right now to give up Bryce Miller. You just don't. And trading him to get Garrett Crochet, while it sounds good on paper, you're getting a reliever at the end of the day. Is what you're getting is a reliever. And
for this year.
Right, for this year, and then next year he's a starter, but then he's a free agent, right? So
he's got two more RBs. Yeah.
Either way, any way you want to slice it, you're still giving up too much, and you're sacrificing a lot of rotation help this year on the assumption that Garrett Crochet is going to be able to throw 180 innings for you this year. He's not. He's not.
I don't know if I worded this right, so I just want to reiterate real quick. You could beat out the Orioles for a package for Crochet and Robert, but should you? That's kind of the thing here, right? And the answer to me is definitively no, because you need starting help, but you don't need starting help on that much of a high end.
Right, and Crochet's not even starting help.
Right, again, yeah, that too. But that's what you're paying for.
Right, exactly. That's the price you're paying.
Yeah, like you're not paying reliever prices, right? The White Sox are selling Garrett Crochet as a starting pitcher.
Yep.
And just as like a high-end one at that, too.
Right. Just like they're selling Luis Robert as an MVP candidate center fielder, which we know he's not. So they're not going to give you a discount because he gets hurt a lot. That's not how they don't care. That's not how they're going to sell. These are their 2 best pieces.
Yep.
So they're going to max out everything they can on these guys. So I'll give it a 40. Like, somewhat creative, but it just, I think you're missing the big picture here.
Yeah. 35-40 for me. All right. We're going to get into more of your trades in just a moment, but first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Stitch Fix. You know that instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good? That's what I get with Stitch Fix. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work just for you. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want, no subscription required, and they send 5 just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. I keep what works and send back the rest. And if you don't love something, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $20 off your first fix. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $20 off. Stitchfix.com/MLB. Must redeem within 7 days of sign up. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. You can catch the M's and the Marlins tonight and over the course of the weekend on the Mariners hometown broadcast of SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners, and this is Fan Fiction Friday. We are reacting to and grading your Mariners mock trades, and we got one here from a friend of the show, JH, who was been in the news lately for sending a pizza to JP Crawford a couple days ago. Jage has been posting these hypothetical trades on Twitter the last couple weeks and been running a poll, and he's asked me to put one of these up on here, so we're going to do that. So this one that he posted a few days ago has the Mariners getting Randy Arozarena and Pete Fairbanks from Tampa for Harry Ford, Jeter Martinez, Jonathan Clase, and Jimmy Joyce.
Feels a little light, but also heavy at the same time.
Yeah,
because like
I don't know how to value Randy right now because Randy's not having a good year, but Randy has track record and he still has 2 years left with club control after this year.
Plus, he's having a monster June. So, like, is that the turnaround? Is it happening, or is it just a hot streak in a down year?
Right.
Plus, not to mention Randy Arozarena, dreadful outfielder, worse than Canzone even. So you have to factor that in. Do you want a guy who should really only DH? And I don't know, not really. And as much of a star as Arozarena presents himself to be, and largely based on his playoff performance in 2020, he really isn't a star. Like, he still 20 bags, still 20 home runs. He's not going 30-30. He's not playing good defense. You know, there's some swing and miss a little bit in his game, and you know, he's a flawed player. Like, he is not a great player. Is he a good player? Yeah, I think it's safe to say he's a good player. Is he like an all-star caliber middle of the order bat? No, I don't think he qualifies as that. Like, he's probably, like, in a great lineup, he probably should hit like 6th, maybe 5th. It's really tough to kind of value a Arozarena, and I feel like if I give up Harry Ford, there's a good chance I gave up Harry Ford for a mediocre like 4th outfielder, because that's what he's been this year. And if I'm giving up Ford, I want somebody I feel really confident is going to help me this year. I don't know if I'm there yet with Randy, because getting a guy who can help me this year is a big part of why I'm trading for you. It's not just about the 2 years of club control. This year matters a lot for me too. So it's a very tough deal. You know, Pete Fairbanks, he's been pretty bad this year, you know, up and down this year. But obviously he has the potential to help you massively in your bullpen. So he's a good addition here. And I do think that, you know, if the Mariners and Rays make a deal, I'd be pretty shocked if you know, Seattle didn't extract some reliever out of the Rays in that deal. So because of like my hesitancy on how to feel about Arozarena and all that stuff, I feel like the return here is about right. I feel like it gets the Rays to the table. And I feel like this is a deal that I could actually see them do. My guess is that they'd be like, hey, how about you give us Harry Ford and Michael Arroyo instead of Jeter Martinez or whatever, or give us Harry Ford and Ty Pete instead of Jeter Martinez or whatever. You know, Randy is one of those guys that makes me a little bit uncomfortable to acquire, but if you hit, like if he's the guy and, you know, he actually hits the rest of the year, he can certainly, you know, change the outlook of this lineup. So it might be a risk worth taking.
I think the counter argument here on Randy is, you know, if he's starting to figure it out because of the track record, don't you kind of trust that, hey, the first couple months of the season were just kind of an anomaly. He's back, right?
I guess, but back to what, a 120 WRC plus guy, like which
is really helpful.
It's helpful, but
especially
it's not
for this lineup,
right? But it's not like elite. It's not like, oh my god, they just added, you know, like Randy Arozarena makes them World Series favorites. No, I mean, and again, to be fair, you're not paying that package because you're only giving up one of your top, you know, 3 or 4 prospects to get him, which is fine. Like, I think the price is fine. Fairbanks is really the X factor here for me. You know, it hasn't been great this year. Hasn't been great. Walks are a little bit high, but not terrible for a reliever. Certainly, we know the Mariners are willing to take more risk in the bullpen with guys like that. So, yeah.
He's also recently hurt his pitching hand. So how does that affect him long term?
And then in his next outing after he hurt his hand, he gave up a 3-run homer, nearly blew the game. So, yeah, there's a lot to consider here. But I think it's a solid 50. I think it's a good starting point, and I think the package is reasonable. I mean, I'd be thrilled if you can get him for not Harry Ford. Like, if they're willing to take like some bulk here, and which they do sometimes. The Rays do sometimes take bulk.
Yeah, if I could trade them a package where like Ty Pete is the leading piece, I'd feel pretty good about that. And we know that the Rays really like Ty Pete.
Right. Like I'd give him Ty Pete and Aiden Smith and Jeter Martinez and Dom Canzone. Like, sure. And by the way, I do think Canzone is a guy who the Rays would have theoretical interest in. Whether or not they like Canzone specifically, I don't know. But that type of player, that young major leaguer, I do feel like that is something that would be appealing to the Rays who, they're Randy Arozarena will not be a Tampa Bay Ray next year. Like it's just a matter of whether or not they trade him at the deadline or they trade him in the winter. But I'd be shocked if Arozarena was a Ray next year. So definitely a name to watch.
All right, Chris has a trade with the Angels. This would be the first trade between the Mariners and the Angels since Jerry DiPoto took over as GM and now eventually president of baseball operations. It's a 1-for-1. It's Reed Detmers for Ryan Bliss. Now, we know that the Mariners had some interest in Reed Detmers his draft year. They didn't go that direction, however. They ended up taking Emerson Hancock, of course. But yeah, what do you think about Detmers, who I think wasn't he recently sent down to AAA?
Yeah, after the Mariners destroyed him.
Yeah, so this is just to add some pitching depth. You trade from your middle infield depth. Thoughts?
I don't think the Angels are going to give up on Reed Detmers for Ryan Bliss. I don't think that's the type of prospect where they'll be like, well, we know he was really pretty good in 2022 and pretty solid in 2023. Like not great, but pretty solid. And we had thought that maybe there was a chance he was going to elevate and take the next step this year, and he just really hasn't. I don't see them giving up on him that early, particularly to Seattle and particularly for Ryan Bliss. I don't think that this is a realistic trade because if you're going to give up on Reed Detmers and you're the Angels, you're probably not going to do it for a guy who's got like 20 plate appearances at the big league level. Like, I mean, I don't know. Would they be interested in like Dom Canzone for Reed Detmers? Even then, probably not, because Canzone's a corner outfield guy. Detmers has 4 years of club control after this year, but I think they'd be more interested in like Canzone than they would be in Bliss. So it's a little tough to say. My guess is if you want Reed Detmers right now, I mean, and you're looking to trade like from your 40 man, like you're not looking to trade a top prospect, they're probably going to be like, give us Luke Raley. And to me, I'm out on that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm good.
If they want Canzone or Bliss, like if I can get this deal, sure, I do that because I'd appreciate having the lefty and the extra depth. And Detmers, is, to me, I know he's been bad this year. To me, he's at least a number 4, like a number 4, number 5 type at the very least. And that's valuable. And like I said, he's got 4 years of club control left. So blah, 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 blah. I don't think that they would do it for Bliss. I would like it if they did. I'd like it if they would do it for Canzone, but I don't see the Angels giving up on Ryan Bliss this early. And I don't see them doing it particularly to send him to the Seattle Mariners.
Yeah. You mean Reed Detmers? Give up on Reed Detmers, not Ryan Bliss.
Well, yeah. Well,
yeah.
Sure. I don't think they're going to give up on Ryan. I don't think they're going to give up on Detmers to get Ryan Bliss.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I'm gonna go 40 on that.
I go 45. It's creative.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's a name we haven't talked about.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing too is like the Angels aren't going to trade with Jerry. All right. We are going to get into a couple more of your trades here in just a moment, but first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is once again brought to you by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Mariners, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000. That's 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked-on. See the link in this episode description. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Once again, you can catch the M's of the Marlins this weekend on the Mariners hometown broadcast, SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. Let's get into your last couple trades here on Fan Fiction Friday. Got this one from Kachikaku. It's the Mariners and the Red Sox. Rob Refsnyder and Chris Martin to Seattle for Ty France, Michael Morales.
I look at this and I say, this is a trade specifically made to get Ty France off of your roster. And I say, why? Refsnyder is basically Dylan Moore. Dylan Moore is a little bit better of an athlete, more power, better base runner. Refsnyder is a little bit more contact and a little bit more average. So whatever. Do I need another Dylan Moore on the roster? Not the worst thing in the world, but I don't need it at the expense of my everyday first baseman. So yeah, to me, this looks like a trade specifically so that you can justify Tyler Locklear being your first baseman for the rest of the year, which again, I don't get. And it's not like Chris Martin wouldn't help. He was great last year. This year, he's been pretty mid, and he's a rental and he's making a little bit of money. Like, he is not going to be cheap monetarily either. So him and France, they probably roughly, cancel each other out. But Refsnyder, by the way, is also making a couple $1 million this year. So to me, like, Martin for France, fine. You're giving up an extra year of France for Martin, to try and help you this year, even though he hasn't been great this year himself. And then if it's Morales for Refsnyder, like, that's fine. Like, that's a utility option for a guy who's, probably the ceiling of a number 5 starter who's still 3 years away, despite being 4 years into his professional career, 3 years into his professional career. Like, so individually, the pieces are fine, but like, I look at the roster overall and I kind of go like, what's the point? Because now I have this huge question mark at first base for the addition of.
No, you don't. You have Tyler Locklear, Colby.
Like I said, you have a huge hole at first base, and your upgrade to the bullpen may or may not be much of an upgrade. There's a chance that you just added Ryan Stanek to your bullpen again, and it's like, cool. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but
you need help.
But at the expense of your first baseman.
Yeah, I'm out.
It doesn't make sense.
I'm out on this.
It doesn't make, like, again, the valuation. I can see how you reach that conclusion. Like, Martin for France seems fair. Refsnyder, a bench player for Morales, and semi-interesting arm who's having a good year this year finally. Sure, and Refsnyder does have a team option for next year, so there is some club control involved. Okay, I get it, but I know why you proposed this trade. And it's specifically just to get rid of Ty France. And to me, like, I think I can go get Chris Martin and keep Ty France. And I still at this point trust Ty France much more than I do Tyler Locklear. So I like, why would I run the risk of having a rookie as my only first base option? I mean, I guess you could say, like, well, Luke Raley could play first and Refsnyder could play in the outfield. And it's like, okay, cool. But now you have Dylan Moore and Refsnyder basically playing every day, and neither of those guys should be playing every day. So I don't like the strain it puts on your roster overall. I don't think you get better enough, if that makes sense, to justify, making this deal. But it is interesting. Like, it is, like, creative and it's out there a little bit. So sure. I'll still give it like a 45 or 50. Because again, like, I think the valuation roughly in the ballpark. Sure. Does it make a ton of sense for the Mariners? I'd say no. So I'll probably go 45.
Yeah, I'll go 45 as well, because I agree with you on, like, the valuation. I can see how you came to this conclusion. I don't like it, though. Like, I wouldn't do this. So to me, like, if I give you a 50 or a 55 or whatever, that's saying, like, I like the trade. I don't like the trade.
Like, I would do that. Like, if that happened, I'd be like, okay. And by the way, not for nothing, why would the Red Sox want Ty France?
They have Tristan Casas. Yeah.
And they have Yoshida, who can only DH for them.
Last trade from Quinn. Ryan McMahon to the Mariners for Harry Ford, Michael Morales, and Luis Suispel. So we not only got a trade with the Angels on this show, we also got one with the Rockies, who is the other team Jerry Dipoto has yet to make a trade with the Mariners.
Intentional, perhaps? I'm so far out on this deal.
Really?
I don't like Ryan McMahon. Like,
I think the Mariners like Ryan McMahon.
I think they probably would too. Here's the thing. The dude's 29 years old. He's about to finish, I believe, his 5th full season, or he will finish his 5th full season. He has never been a league average bat. This year he's running a 118 WRC plus. I think a couple of weeks ago it was like 130. So we're already starting to see the decline a little bit. He strikes out a ton for a player with his profile. And, so what you're getting is like great third base defense. I feel like I'm literally describing Josh Rojas right now. Like, why would I give up?
But yeah,
a lip? Maybe. Is that going to translate? I don't know. Maybe. Lefty pop traditionally translates better to T-Mobile Park than right-handed pop. Sure. And he walks, like he's going to run a 10% walk rate, but he's striking out 28% of the time this year. Last year was 31.6, by the way. His career high in WRC plus is 95.
Yeah.
Over a full season. He's never been a 3-win player. He's 29 years old. Like, if it's not going to happen, if it hasn't happened yet, is it going to? Maybe. Now, he is cost controlled. He's under club control through the 2027 season. But there are conditional opt-outs after 25 and 26. Not quite sure what those are. But it's not like he's cost control at his AAV is around $11 million a year, $12 million a year.
Yeah.
And now I have to give up Harry Ford to get this guy who might not be better than Josh Rojas. I'm out. I'm out. I don't want a more expensive Josh Rojas at the expense of Harry Ford.
Yeah. There's so many question marks with Ryan McMahon. I think the Mariners like him. I've said this for multiple years now, actually. Because we've talked about him even dating back to I think 2021 we had conversations about Ryan McMahon. For this package, no. There's just too many red flags, too many question marks for me to go, yeah, you can have Harry Ford plus for him.
No. To me, Ryan McMahon is like the ideal guy to go give up like Ty Pete or Aiden Smith. Like, you go give up somebody who's like 3-4 years away from the big leagues, and if they turn into a star, fine, whatever. But like, I'm not giving up a guy who's like right on the cusp of the big leagues, who has, everyday player upside for an expensive below league average bat, slight defensive upgrade at third base. Like, I'm not doing that. So I'm so far out on just McMahon in general. Like, again, if they're giving up, like, if they're going to bulk and it's like Jeter Martinez and Michael Arroyo and Jonathan Clase and whatever, Type E, whatever. Like, if they're giving that up, fine, whatever. Give up bulk, go get Ryan McMahon. If I'm giving up any potential impact for the 24, 25, or 26 season, I'm probably out. I don't like Ryan McMahon that much. I just don't think that. I think he is a name that is, he's a guy who's more name than he is actually a good player. And so maybe he gets out of course and he actually translates to Safeco beautifully. Maybe the Mariners know exactly what they want him to do and how they're going to fix him and all that stuff. So again, trust the Mariners a little bit, but if they're giving up one of their top 5 or 6 prospects to get this guy, I'm so out, because that's just too big of a risk for me to take.
Okay, great.
35.
Yeah. 35, 40 for me. Yeah. Probably 35. Yeah, I think I'm gonna land there right with you. All right. Well, thank you everyone for your trade proposals this week. We'll be doing this again next week, so be on the lookout for the tweet so you can submit your proposals there. That's going to do it for our show. But before we get out of here, a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Dane Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Ty Dane Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.